Superhero Stuff You Should Know is part of the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Hey, this is Ben from Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and I have an important announcement for you guys. At the end of every single episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you might hear us shout out to our fans, one of whom is Matt Herring, who was one of the original Superhouse fans. He's always given us his support, and now it's time that we support him. We've just recently found out that Matt has been diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And as a cancer survivor myself, I know personally that there's a lot of emotional and financial strain that comes into that. His wife, Kelly, has set up a GoFundMe account at gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt. And hopefully you can help reduce the financial strain to that, as well as some of the emotional strain that comes with that. Again, that's gofundme.com/f/Matthew-kicks-cancer039s-butt.
Matt Herring was the first, I guess you could say, true Superhouse fan. We were Superhouse at that time. You know, the first fan of this podcast and what we do here, and has always supported us, talked about us, and he's from a town close to where I'm from, and so we share that as well, and just a huge superhero fan, and, you know, nerd like the rest of us, and now he's going through that, and if you could donate just at least any amount of money to that link that Ben just said, that would be truly appreciated. Just hang in there, Matt. You'll beat this thing soon.
Ah, the random toss. The only true justice. Oh, it's like the touch of God. Wait, oh, wait, oh, wait.
Riddle me this, Two-Face. Why do you need the coin at all? It seems like you're going to decide anyway.
Be quiet, Riddler. I'm trying to get it to land up on the bad heads. If it doesn't come up on bad heads, I can't shoot Batman over there. Now, stop it. I gotta concentrate here.
Well, you see, that's sort of the thing I'm talking about. You want to shoot, so what's the point of even flipping the coin in the first place?
It's all about duality, Riddler. Don't you get it? With your stupid David Bowie hair, you don't understand. If it comes up on good heads, I just gotta sit here and be a good little boy, and Harvey takes over. But if it comes up on bad heads...
Sit here to flip the coin again?
That's right. I gotta keep flipping until it comes up on bad heads, so I can start this party with a bang and shoot Brucey between the eyes.
So if you're just waiting on the bad one, why don't you just do it now?
That's not my shtick. Psychotic, get it? Split personality. The acid gave me the brain damage. Now I'm all kooky, and I gotta get my coin to land on the right side, even though I act like I'm evil 100% of the time.
That doesn't make a lot of sense there, Harv. I'm just gonna take the gun and shoot him myself.
Riddler, you touch my gun again, and we're gonna see if you bleed green.
Yeah, hands off the gun, Enigma. Let it go to Harvey just to give me some more time here.
Thank you, Bruce. You've always been a good friend. Now, I gotta keep flipping this fucking coin to see if I can shoot ya.
So it's not just your stupid face, it's actually the coin's face as well.
It's Lady Liberty of Gotham or some shit. You know, it's on both sides. It's all scratched up.
You don't even know the fucking coin that you flip all the time. You should really know this in and out,
$silver,
since it's like your main fucking thing you decide every goddamn thing on.
At least I'm not prancing around in little nitty tights. I'm wearing a suit like a man.
At least I can decide some shit without flipping a goddamn coin around, you know? That you look like a fucking idiot, more than you already would with the fucking two faces going on.
It makes me interesting.
Did your mom tell you that?
I'm a multi-layered villain. Multi-layered. Never know what's gonna happen.
2 layers, really 1 layer, because you're always going for the one side of the coin?
I don't write this stuff, I just play it.
Multi-layered like this role you are in this movie. Well, Batman's about to slow down and get tired from fighting, so it would be easier to shoot him now. He's been going at it for a while. I know he's got peak physicality, but there's a point where it's going to slow down.
Well, probability-wise, I'm sure it's gonna come up a bad head any moment. You're just bad luck, Enigma. Riddler, breaking my concentration.
Wait, riddle me this, Harv. What's going on with that coin?
What do you mean? Hey, look at this! It's got 2 good heads on it. No wonder it would never land bad side up.
Yes, earlier I switched the coins, and in the time that you guys were arguing, I went down to the Batcave and switched into my Batsuit. Thanks for blowing up the entire cave, by the way, Riddler. That is really an inconvenience. Too bad you didn't
It's
find
no
the cave
problem.
under the cave where I have this suit. Anyways, I'm bringing you both in.
I take back what I said about you always being a good friend, Bruce. That's a real dick move.
Riddle me this. Where's my joygasm? Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know. I'm running the show this time around. It's Andrew, everybody, and I'm joined by...
This is Ben, the man who knows too much about Batman, taking a back seat today, tasting some nice beverages with my Wonder Woman glass right here.
Nice.
Yes.
And it's me, kiddies, all those podcast listeners out there. Your old Uncle Joker's back, ready to hear about Blunder Woman's Home from Andrew Tavius.
Great.
Zach.
Okay, so off the top, this is definitely a role reversal, and consider it kind of like a wild card almost. We're going to do this every now and again. I'm going to be doling out the tutelage. It's not about Wonder Woman in particular. It's actually about Themyscira and the Amazons.
Yes.
So, buckle up, everybody. You ready?
Yes, we're ready. Though I do have a quick couple corrections departments from the last episode. I said last time that Ben Affleck got to 225 pounds, and that was the comic book canon weight for Batman. Turns out the comic book canon weight for Batman is 210. It's 225 for Superman. So I got it mixed up. It's Superman's weight who's 225. So Ben Affleck definitely overachieved in that end. I also brought up that KG Beast getting locked up appeared after a death in the family, but that's not correct. It appeared before the death in the family. The reason why I brought up that was evidence of Batman becoming more brutal lately is that in year 3, Nightwing brings up the fact that Batman did that to KG Beast as an example of Batman slowly becoming more and more brutal over the years. So those are the main things. And I'm excited to learn more about Themyscira. I feel like when it comes to worlds and mythology, that is definitely your wheelhouse more than mine, Andrew.
It's weird you say that because I don't super focus on world building as much as I think a lot of people. I like Grant Morrison's thing where he says, like, who pumps a Batmobile's tires? Who gives a fuck? Basically, that's what he says. There's a longer quote there, but... I'm more in line with that, but I do like it. It's not like I don't like it. It's just not my main thing, but it was cool going over all of this stuff because some of it I knew, some of it I didn't know, and a disclaimer, since I don't do this as much as Ben, might be a little all over the place. Not terribly so, but I think a little more than Ben maybe. And then the other thing is might mispronounce some of the Greek names involved. And stuff like that. So, apologies in advance. Correct us in the comments. We're going to try our best here. I'm going to try to Alex Trebek it and fucking pronounce everything correctly, but we'll see how that goes. Let's start at the beginning. Also, I'm not a historian. Let's also put that out there. We're going to try to enrich our knowledge, children, today, because we're going to try to connect the pop culture that is Wonder Woman and see more of the actual history and mythology of where some of that comes from. And Wonder Woman, of course, like we all know, most of us know there's something Greek about it, and there's a lot of Greek mythology there, actual Greek mythology, Greek history probably woven in there a little bit as well. And I personally like that kind of thing because there's something for me that comes a little full circle about something that was maybe originally for children, but then it goes all the way back around again to being deep, and that's really my shit. I like that kind of thing, and that's really like the fun of learning about, like, with Superman, all the connections to Jewish traditions and stuff like that. That's just one example. So. And a lot of it has it, and that's what we're going to do here today. So, also, I know more disclaimers. We'll get to the actual thing, but we're three dudes talking about Wonder Woman here and everything involving Themyscira and the Amazons. So, I think we'll handle. It'll be fine. But if we mess anything up, let us know out there, our female listeners. So yeah,
we tried to invite Amazon warriors onto the show, but they couldn't leave the island. So it's just the three of us right now.
No Wi-Fi out there either.
Yeah, that too.
They keep it old school, man. Too much time, too much training for that shit.
Yeah.
Okay, so before diving into Wonder Woman's history, or the history of Themyscira, it's worth understanding why she was invented in the first place. Where many years of fan service from the entertainment industry might lead you to believe that Wonder Woman was a cash grab to capitalize on people who weren't buying Golden Age comics, namely young girls. This is just a source I'm reading here. The real origin of the character is considerably more idealistic. William Moulton Marston, creator of the lie detector test, also created the character of Wonder Woman to put forward the idea of a feminist utopia, believing that the world led by women with interests of women first would be a better one. Another disclaimer: if you don't like political shit, turn this off. I'm telling you now. If you haven't liked what you just heard, maybe turn this one off.
Maybe Wonder Woman is not for you.
Yeah, just skip to the next one. So, no hard feelings. All right, so the inventor and psychologist, William Moulton Marston, exaggerated the traits of the liberated women he saw around him in his real life, and he especially had two women around him real close because they were in a polyamorous relationship, okay? Everybody know what polyamorous means?
We do, but just in case the audience does not.
Okay, yeah, in case the audience does not, it's essentially dating more than one person or being in a committed relationship. It's not cheating, and it's not swinging either. It's not being a swinger, because swinger is just kind of fucking all around. This is like staying in a committed relationship with more than one person. Okay?
And also the parties are aware of that. It's not just
Yeah.
somebody being like, oh, I'm in a poly relationship, and then just goes back to his wife who is none the wiser. Like, she's in the know about the fact.
Yeah. So, obviously, we're looking at a guy that was kind of ahead of his time in certain ways with that kind of thing. Or going back to old religions that are older than Christianity, or older traditions, rather, because obviously that sort of thing has been around for as long as everything else has, you know. So he said, quote, "Not even girls want to be girls so long as our feminine archetype lacks force, strength, and power. Not wanting to be girls. They don't want to be tender, submissive, peace-loving, as good women are. Women's strong qualities have become despised because of their weakness." He wrote that in The American Scholar. The obvious remedy is to create a feminine character with all the strength of Superman, plus all the allure of a good and beautiful woman. Okay? That's from Marston himself. So, when he was seeking out a perfect vector for his ideas about women in society, the Amazons came tailor-made. He was a firm believer in the superiority. Remember that word. The superiority of the fairer sex. And he used a strange medium to spread his theories, comic books. Okay? And so let's pause there again for a second.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't believe in equality. He believed in the superiority
Domination, yes.
of women. Okay? All right, so getting back to it. Looking around at the generation, this is in the late 30s and 40s for him. This is during the suffragette movement, and that is the movement to get women the vote and general women's rights happening at this time. Mainly the vote, though, I think, in this particular part. So Marston saw the type of people he believed should control society at large. So he created a comic book with Amazons and a place not so subtly titled Paradise Island, the original name for Themyscira. Okay?
Right.
He wanted to show what that world would look like. And so, another quote from Marston, he said, Wonder Woman is psychological propaganda for the new type of woman who should, I believe, rule the world. So he was not bearing the lead. This was feminist propaganda from his mouth. It's fucking not lying about it, not trying to, not bury the lead. So thoughts so far, Zach?
Wow, it's very progressive and surprising for that time period. For me, especially, somebody that was as successful as he was, and was this after he invented the lie detector test?
I think after.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, it just is. It's very surprising for me. Seems like a very progressive dude of that time period. Looking at the older comics of Wonder Woman, though, I do see at least some fetishism going on within her costume that it's hard to believe that I guess he's not de-objectifying women either. So it's interesting to hear so far. I forgot that the original name for Themyscira was Paradise Island, so it seems pretty cool.
Yeah. This is almost like the Ubermensch, but for women, in a way, it sounds like. Yeah. In terms of what he's trying to do with Wonder Woman. But, I mean, the Themyscira, the island itself, I think, is very well, in terms of an idea, it's very well portrayed in not just the comics, but also the movies. It's universally the most praised part of all of these movies in the DC Extended Universe. Even, like, Wonder Woman 84, despite the reception, and, like, the most that you could criticize about the opening is just, like, that doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the story.
Right.
But everyone was still, like, it was still cool. Like, they still liked it. There's nobody who's really criticized the portrayal of that island, because it's just a really cool world, and more people want to see more of it. So it's kind of awesome that he... sort of the origins of this came from what he wanted to see, and not just Greek mythology, which I know ties into a little bit, is what you're gonna get into.
Yeah. We'll get there. Don't worry. We're gonna get in the weeds on that one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is. I mean, the lie detector test. Compare that to him making the lasso of truth. There's like obvious connections here, and he was a college professor. His wife and their lover were also part of the suffragette movement, and it's just like this is all very much on purpose. None of it seems to be too much on accident. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it just kind of feels like, just like with technology, if you dream it, it's gonna happen. Like there's fucking. I saw a video of the Royal Marines using jetpacks from a mini boat to a fucking aircraft carrier. We got fucking jetpacks in the military now. We have women voting now. Like you have to dream it first, like what Marston's doing here. Mm-hmm. And I assume his wife probably had some input. Maybe their lover too. But anyway, you dream it first and it becomes reality, right? So I think that was part of the purpose of the propaganda. So do you guys know anybody that is polyamorous, or were you surprised to learn this aspect of Marston's tale?
Zach doesn't seem surprised.
I don't personally know anybody, but I was just surprised during that time period, at least. It didn't seem like it. Obviously, it isn't as open and talked about as it is now. But yeah, I think that's where my surprise would come from, just that time period.
Yeah, I would agree, though. I mean, I think I knew about it going in because of the movie. I haven't seen the movie, but there's a movie just about William Moulton Marston and his basically two lovers on that. I have not seen it. Maybe we'll check it out at some point, but it does explore that aspect, and it's definitely ahead of its time for the 1930s and 1940s.
It might be the college environment, maybe. They were just progressive thinkers in academia. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that must have something to do with it, but yeah. All right, let's get to it, y'all. Themyscira. The groundwork's been laid. Themyscira is a fictional, unitary, sovereign city-state in an archipelagic island nation, appearing in DC Comics. Previously known as Paradise Island and the Amazon Isles, it first appeared in All-Star Comics number 8, that's December 1941. Man, the timing. Okay.
I know, right?
Woo! Shit was going on, man. So yeah, the original name given to it by Marston in that comic was Paradise Island. It was not renamed until February of 1987. Okay.
Post-crisis.
Yeah, post-crisis. The island Themyscira is named after the actual mythological city of Themyscira in the mythology for actual Greek mythology for the Amazons, the Amazonian tribe. So that's pulled straight from there. Okay. DC swaps the I and the Y, however, just to, I guess, claim a little bit more ownership of it. And that's basically it. They also wanted to make it seem like it's not exactly the same thing. A source known as History Daily points out the original Themyscira wasn't an island. It was the capital city of a region said to be on the coast of the Black Sea at the mouth of the Thermodon River. This would situate it in northeastern Anatolia, an area we would recognize as Turkey today. Okay?
Interesting. Okay. So the Amazons are technically Turkish, according to Greek mythology.
I think so, yeah. But the location, I think, changes a little bit, but that's definitely like maybe a leading theory. Maybe it is the place, but I feel like I have other locations here coming up. But yeah, maybe that's the main one. Correct me in the comments. Okay. So they are a segregated nation of women in Themyscira, regarded as feminist utopia, governed by Aphrodite's law. Declared that Aphrodite's law declares that the Amazons would be immortal as long as no man sets foot on their island. These rules probably changed from fucking Rebirth to New 52 and shit.
Right.
So cut me some slack on this a little bit, but men are banned from Themyscira under the penalty of death. Themyscira's location is undisclosed as a security measure. The island can shift its location over both land and time. They remain undetectable from outside observers, and as soon as anyone leaves the island, they forget its location. Aphrodite's law was put into place due to the queen becoming emotionally scarred following her rape at the hands of Hercules. As a result, her people became very isolationist. It's a good reason. And came to the conclusion that most, if not all, men were monsters. The island was created by Marston to allegorize the safety and security of the home where women thrived apart from the hostile male-dominated workplace of the 1940s. And the workplace at that time was colloquially referred to as man's world as well. So
makes sense.
There's a lot of that going on. Yep.
Just to clarify then, the Marston creates this as an allegory to women in the workplace. The stuff about Aphrodite's law and the rape from Hercules, that comes from Greek mythology, or it comes from the comics?
I think that the Hercules part is part of Greek mythology.
I think so, yeah. I just wanted to clarify.
The allegory to workplace...
is Marston.
Yeah,
of course, because that wouldn't have been around in Greek mythology.
Yeah. So
it really makes me think about that Disney movie differently now. Hercules.
Yeah. There's not a lot.
Yeah.
There's not a lot going on. Not every story is good about him. Let's put it that way.
Oh damn.
Well, not all the Greek, heroes and Greek gods were necessarily great people either.
I mean, there's jokes about Zeus fucking everybody, right?
Yeah.
Is Zeus having like affairs left and right?
I mean, even in the Wonder Woman stuff now, she is his daughter.
Right. That's right.
Apollo got with him too.
Yeah.
She saw him on the battlefield at the Dark Side battle, and she's like, "I'm gonna get some of that." And that's exactly how Wonder Woman was born.
It's kind of a bigger conversation here, but before Christianity takes over Europe as a whole, it could be said that, like, not that morals were looser, but things were grayer, I think. Christianity, I hope I don't piss anybody off too much with this, but it's really like black and white. Like, you got God, you got the devil. Okay? But in like Greek mythology and most religions really outside of Abrahamic religions, It's a little more gray, I'd say. You know, like even people probably team up with Hades and shit. Like Hades is kind of the devil, but he's not quite as bad as Satan.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, he's not evil.
Yeah. So
it's not as archetypical, I think, as Christianity is. It's like Hades doesn't represent all evil and sin of the world. That's just like he's just the god of the dead. It's just like he is what he is. So.
Right. So if that's your worldview, and your main god Zeus is also fucking people left and right, you know, the way you see the world might be different. So, so yeah. All right, get it back to it. Let's see here. Themyscira is also a theocracy. That is a government ruled by and with religious ideals. I assume the Greek mythology, which is Greek religion. But do they worship themselves? I don't know. That wasn't really mature. Not mature. It wasn't explained enough from what I read.
Sure they believe in like Athena and Zeus and everybody, right?
They believe in them, so I guess they worship Zeus, maybe. You know, I don't know, but they all go by at least some religious ideals, I think, and their government is tied in with that.
Yeah.
So the entire name of the archipelago became the Paradise Islands when it was renamed to Themyscira in February of 1987, because there's several of them. It's an archipelago. Archipelago is a group of islands. So yeah, the location. This is interesting. The poet Aeschylus describes the home of the Amazons as being originally far to the north by Greek reckoning, in what we know as Ukraine. Though he does say that they would later move to Themyscira on the plain by Thermodon. So that might go. So Ukraine back to Turkey. See, it's a little muddy here.
Well, as you said, the location does change a lot. So it kind of makes sense that there would be all these conflicting information. So maybe it changes around a lot in the comics because of the fact that there's this conflicting information in mythology.
Exactly, yeah. And this poet Aeschylus, this is real history, by the way. So yeah, the comics are based on the actual mythology changing place. Yes, that's exactly right. It also gives a little bit more, flexibility, I think. So yeah, it was in northeastern Anatolia by some as well, by the mouth of what is known as the Terme River. Terme? I need to look up the pronunciation on that. It's Terme. Terme. Southern coast of the Black Sea. Some ancient writers placed it further west in Turkey, or even in Greece. But NASA, this source I have here says that NASA says it's located in Anatolia. So that would be Turkey.
NASA's like, we found Wonder Woman.
Yeah. So yeah, some people said it's also in the Bermuda Triangle, the Aegean Sea, and so on. Director Patty Jenkins had this to say: "Mine is probably somewhere right in the Mediterranean, surrounded and influenced a little bit by all of the different cultures from that rim of the Mediterranean. So there's everything from European to Middle Eastern to Moroccan." That was Patty Jenkins, okay?
Makes sense.
Yep. I think if you're Mediterranean, Greek, even Italy, right? That's all close. Southern Europe, you're in the right ballpark, right? Well, Turkey too, but the shots in the movie that aren't green screen, that are not CG, are shot in a ghost town in Italy called Krakow, Craco. I'm assuming Krakow. And that's where Jenkins shot her Themyscira.
Nice.
And
I can see that.
Yeah. Yeah. It looks great. I mean, you know what it looks like because you've seen the movie, but I mean, yeah, it's cool. It's you wonder why it's a ghost town. Like, why is nobody inhabiting this? It's just there for movies now, or what?
Yeah, so, but you can see the Italian landscape in just the surroundings of it. So it does make a lot of sense. I'm just like, yeah, I could see that being like her traveling to Italy for that part.
Right. All right, checking in with you guys. Zach, thoughts on this new tutelage?
I'm learning a lot. My brain is expanding. I'm trying to differentiate between the Greek mythology and what is the actual mythology for Themyscira in the comics, as it's like kind of intertwining. So I mean, it's really cool to me.
It's a Venn diagram. I'll try to make it a little clearer going forward, but yeah, some of it's just the same, and some of it's exactly what Marston did and shit. Ben?
Mm-hmm. I always think it's cool to build off superhero mythologies based off of actual mythology, because then you can you have some license to move around with things, but overall you're dealing with worlds that are somewhat familiar already, and it's a nice explanation instead of being like, well, like he has powers because he was struck by this specific type of radiation. Then it's just like, well, she's tied with the Greek gods. Zeus is her dad.
Right.
That's all you need. That's all you really need for that. So it makes a lot of sense to do that. And so I like hearing about the differences between the mythology in whether it's Greek mythology versus DC mythology and where they drew the line. I believe, and let me know if this is something that you found as well, Andrew, but Patty Jenkins is on record saying that DC originally wanted the whole background of Hercules raping the Amazonian queen.
I didn't see that
in Wonder Woman 1, and she said no, because she's just like, nobody's gonna want that. Like, nobody's gonna want to see that. And I was like, absolutely not. Like, that's not something that we need in that story of Wonder Woman 1.
I'm gonna skip ahead in my notes, but Marston also takes this out of his original run because he wanted it to be all women. He doesn't want them to like react to a man to create Themyscira. It's all their own devices or whatever.
Yeah, I just don't like it in terms of an origin of that version of Themyscira as that sort of reaction, as opposed to it being his idea of a paradise island, where it's just like they're hidden away because of the fact that they can do their own like society. Like one island. And there's different explanations as well in the movies in terms of where they landed on the island, as we saw in the Patty Jenkins movie. But it doesn't have to come from what somebody did to them.
Right. Yeah, I think Marston was onto something there.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree.
Yeah,
it does make me wonder where is Zeus in like the DC movies, because Ares is hopping around on Earth in Wonder Woman 1 and getting up to his shenanigans. So you see that Zeus exists as a real person in Zack Snyder's Justice League in that flashback. So I wonder where he is like during the second coming of, or whatever, Steppenwolf coming down and everything like that.
He's trying to find his next wife, as we saw in Greek mythology. He's trying to find the next person to get with.
He doesn't care about the affairs of men anymore, or human women.
It is a good question.
Yeah.
In terms of where are Zeus and Artemis? Artemis is the one with the arrows, who's part of the sort of the Trinity from that flashback battle. They don't really cover what happens to Zeus, at least I don't think. We'll check in during the break just to see if there's anything that was mentioned that we forgot about in Wonder Woman 1. But I believe that's pretty much it, unless he was supposed to come back in a future Wonder Woman movie. That would be interesting.
That would be cool. If you got it'd be interesting who they get to play Hercules as well. Definitely not Sorbo.
If they do,
yeah. He's kind of sullied that for me now as well. The name of Hercules.
Good old Peanut. If you look up fucking Lucy Lawless on Twitter, she calls Kevin Sorbo Peanut. God damn, it's funny as hell to me, man. Okay, getting back to it. Hey, this is right on track, actually. There is no Zeus in Marston's story either. Again, it's all about the women. There's no Hercules in his version. Strictly a world without men.
Sorry,
men
I just found it.
Pain and evil.
I just found it out. Yeah. Zeus was killed in the DCEU.
Oh, shit.
We forgot about it, but yeah, it was. He chose to sacrifice himself when he went up against Ares. Ares brings us up to her, or she learns about this in Wonder Woman 1.
So you're saying they had it explained better than anybody was expecting?
Yeah.
You're telling me Snyder had a reason?
Or Jenkins. Yeah.
Or Jenkins. Jenkins did,
Yeah.
yes, of course. All right, so it's strictly a world without men. Men are the source of pain and evil for the Amazons. Marston wanted to explore what it would be like to have a hero like Diana, a woman raised solely by women, completely aware of what men are capable of at their worst. Philosophically, Marston believed that women were capable of showing humanity a different way of life, a peaceful and loving one, in contrast to the ways of man and the patriarchy. Again, turn this off if you guys don't like it. The patriarchy.
These are true origins of basically the top superhero of DC right now. One of the top DC superheroes right now, and probably the most.
Trinity.
Yeah, definitely one of the most famous in terms of female superheroes at all. So, this is true history.
Yeah, exactly. But when it's not history, segue, it's the comics. And according to the post-reboot continuity, I don't know which reboot they're talking about at this point, but I think New 52, Themyscira didn't begin its life as an island at all there either. It was a city-state of Amazons near modern-day Turkey. The state was created by the gods themselves originally, molding the Amazons out of clay and tasking them with teaching traits like compassion to the wider world. Okay, so that was in one of the continuities, I think New 52. Another funny thing about it, there's a big thing, seemingly a big thing in Paradise Island and Themyscira 2 in the comics, where they all rode kangaroos.
I don't remember that.
They call them, they ride them like horses, and they call them kangas. Diana's Kango was called Jumpa. So
are we sure that Themyscira isn't by Australia?
Yeah, dude, it's just fun comic book shit, you know. And there were smaller rabbit-like creatures also wandering around Paradise Island. They made a point to make that. They made that a point as well. So I just thought that was funny. They got
Patty Jenkins, give us Jumpa in Wonder Woman 3. All will be forgiven in Wonder Woman 1984.
Yes. If we have Topo and Aquaman, we can have Kanga. We can have Jumpa.
Yeah.
Well, Steve Trevor will have to come back in a kangaroo's body this time.
In the pouch, dude.
Yes. Oh, yeah. He'll just peek out of
He's
it.
in the pouch.
Diana, I'm back. What the fuck? I've had to get over you twice now.
Gotta get Chris Pine back.
He just shows up in aviators popping out of the fucking pouch. I'm back.
What's up?
I'd have to be eye candy for all the women that are going to see this movie. Oh, shit. Jumping back around again. Back to the allegory for the workforce. Marston was fascinated by the suffragette movement and believed women should be on equal footing with men. We all know that. Using the story of Heracles. Seems like Heracles and Hercules are the same?
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
they are,
Heracles
right?
is the original Greek name, I believe.
Okay. Heracles / Hercules, but it says Heracles here. Heracles coming to Themyscira for Hippolyta's belt as inspiration for the home of the Amazons. The story of Paradise Island followed that Hercules invaded and made Amazon women his slaves. So, in some stories, if he's not raping them, he's making them his slaves. So there's that. He shackled them, and yeah, they could not escape. But then they broke their bonds. They kept the silver bracelets. They made silver bracelets out of the chains, I think, is what it's trying to say here. Sorry, it's a little bit of a word salad I got. But yeah, so they break the chains and then they make their own, and I think that might probably is connected to the gauntlets. So that's cool.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Hercules is not the Superman type archetype that we got in the Disney movie, who was sent down from a different world down to Earth and raised by a nice farmer couple, so that he could eventually become the savior of mankind, just like Disney portrayed. The original, labors of Superman. Labors of Hercules is definitely a lot darker and less idealistic, I would say.
Again, like it's not gray. There's probably some heroic stories for Hercules too, but then there's other stories like this, and It's all part of the mythology, you know?
I mean, he kills his own family in the Greek mythology. That they definitely left that out of the Disney movie, partially because he wasn't completely in control of his body, but he does kill his wife and kids.
Tangent to my own shit real quick, but talking about Hercules, there was a run in the 90s, like you're going from Little Mermaid to Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, heavy hitters back to back.
Right.
And then Hercules. And it was just like, what the fuck? Maybe Pocahontas was the first one to go down. But did you guys feel that way?
Oh, hell, I liked Hercules.
Really?
Yeah, I liked the music in that one.
I liked it, but it wasn't like the same level, I would say.
No.
It was a dip, man.
It was a dip, but I mean, I would also argue that it's pretty, like, compared to what we are getting today, it would be pretty good compared to some of the other stuff that's out. So,
Right.
It's a dip in quality, but it's a dip in quality from, like, a very, like, classic age of animated movies that I don't think has quite been reached, except for, you know, older Pixar stuff.
Late 80s, early 90s Disney was like this pinnacle, I feel
Untouchable,
like.
yeah.
And then Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and fucking, what was that one again? Fucking Hercules. It goes down. Takes a dip for me. But anyway. All right, back to the real thing here. Well, back to questions. So, most surprising thing for me here was the allegory to the workforce and the chain thing. Chain to bracelets, the gauntlets. What was the most interesting fact here in this little segment, Zach?
His mind is still blown from all the Hercules stuff.
I'm stuck on Hercules now.
Well, sing us a song then.
No, I can't now. He's been sullied. I don't know. It's all. I like what you said. I'm glad that Marston took out that really kind of negative and dark origin for the Amazonians and having it be like their own choice to be separated for their own safety, and because they know of what men have been doing throughout history and time outside of their world, so they know good and well how bad things are whenever they are, you know, in control of things. So I think that's really cool. Again, props back to him for being as progressive as he was during that time period. It is very surprising.
It's incredible. Ben?
It's got to be Jumper.
Jumper.
It's got to be that kangaroo.
Kangas and Jumper.
Oh, let's get that kangaroo over in Wonder Woman 3.
Chris Pine popping out.
He's gonna look like Kangaroo Jack, though. That's what he's gonna look like when he looks in the mirror. When we see him, he'll look like Chris Pine. When he looks in the mirror, he's gonna look like Kangaroo Jack with sunglasses and a red hoodie on. So you know, it all comes around.
She's just going to be on his back for one part of the movie as he's as he's just trying to go across the meadow.
Jumpa's just looking at them use another guy's body during sex as well. It's just terrible. They didn't learn their lesson in Wonder Woman 2.
Yep.
Did not learn their lesson. All right, guys, we're at the fucking break. Check you later.
See ya.
Hi, I'm Ray, and this is my friend Alex.
Hi.
And we do a show called No More Whoppers.
Some call it corn, we call it therapy.
We're adults with the virility of men.
Want to hear us read snack food copy and talk about Japanese chips? Too bad!
Join us every month or so on the Greenlit Podcast Network.
Riddle me this, Hal. Why the fuck are you wearing green like me? I'm the guy that wears green around here. Take that shit off.
What do you mean take that shit off? You take that shit off, Riddler. The Green Lantern Corps has been around for centuries.
I don't give a shit. I think I'm the only person that should be wearing green around here. Riddle me this. Who's got your ring now?
Wait, what the? Not again.
All of that was a ploy, you see, Hal?
Well, you seem to be glowing. That's about it.
No, I have powers, see? Wait, I know, I definitely have powers.
Still glowing.
I can make a construct just like you did.
I'm not seeing anything.
How the fuck do you do this, Hal?
Well, you need willpower, but it looks like all your willpower went to the riddles.
Are you telling me Even with this ring on, there is absolutely no difference because all I want to do is... Yes, you're right. All I want to do is tell riddles. Exactly right, Hal.
Also, for the record, you look like a leprechaun. You don't need the green.
That was part of my whole raison d'etre. I know I can do it.
Still not working.
I know I can. Riddle me this. Riddle me this.
I can pretty
riddle
much
me this.
just give it to you, and it's still not going to do anything. At this point, this is a citizen's arrest.
This is the wrong color for me. This doesn't... Actually, I know the Green Lantern ring. What would be good for me? I need the yellow one. Fear?
That would be more of Scarecrow's thing. Let's see. There's not really color for puzzle-obsessed douchebags.
I know I can do it. A little bit of training like Bats does. I'll be able to get it. Focus my will.
All right, well, in the time you did that, I already called Batman, so good luck.
He got the ring back. God damn it. Riddle me this. How did I miss that? It was on my finger, for Christ's sakes. There's no ring for me.
Actually, I'm back, and turns out you do have a color, Riddler.
Oh?
Yes, the color for puzzle-obsessed douchebags is actually fuchsia. There's a fuchsia core just for you guys who do crossword puzzles all the time.
The fuchsia core, you say? Answer this riddle for me. Where the fuck is that ring so I can get it?
Oh, the fuchsia ring? Yeah, let me just get it for you. It's in the center of my asshole.
All right, everybody, if you like that sketch right there, we have that, plus news, plus we're bringing back some opinion pieces and review-type stuff and all kinds of stuff in our $5 tier on Patreon. So just go to patreon.com/superherostuffpod, and if you become part of the $5 tier, you can see these new bonus episodes. Basically, consider it Superhouse DLC. More like some damn insane. And we're back. And we're going to go over the Amazons now. We're not leaving Themyscira, but we're leaving the topic of it. Okay, we're staying in Themyscira, but we're talking about the residents now.
Yes.
Okay.
But you wanted to do a quick corrections department. So just to clarify, we had forgotten that Zeus died in Wonder Woman 1, but it is part of the origin presented in the first Wonder Woman movie that when fighting Ares, Zeus sacrificed himself and basically created Themyscira for the Amazons to live safely and to protect his daughter Diana so that she could grow up and take down Ares herself. And then he died of his wounds. However, his powers did end up living on into basically being transferred over to the Shazam family, as we saw in Shazam, and eventually in Black Adam when that comes out. So just throwing out there that that's the death of Zeus is tied into the birth of Themyscira in the DC Extended Universe.
I'm looking forward to Black Adam. Thank you for that tutelage, bro.
No problem.
Okay. Zach's mind is blown still again. All right. That was, by the way, that was Snyderverse. That was
Destroys
Snyderverse.
Hercules. The Snyderverse that Patty Jenkins presented in the Wonder Woman movie.
Okay. All right. So, the Amazons. In Greek mythology, the Amazons were a tribe of fierce warrior women who lived in Asia Minor. They were ruled by a series of queens who consorted with the gods of Mount Olympus. These warrior women were frequently depicted as living separately from other societies, particularly the men of other countries. Some versions of the stories involving Amazons have them regularly meeting with neighboring tribesmen at scheduled times so that they can have children. We're going to come back to this also later.
So this is a little different from the island where they're just like, no man shall venture over here. By the way, let's go hook up with those guys over there.
Yeah, it's sometimes like we got that's where the clay comes in, all right? So you don't have any men involved.
Hippolyta is on Tinder just swiping. Just be like, he looks cute.
Left, right. Okay, and of course, in that instance where they have the children with them, the Amazons take all the girls, naturally. Homer, the actual, not Simpsons, the actual Homer, called the Amazons, who may have been based off actual real warrior women. I think it's still kind of up to... There might be some actual tribes that really were warrior women tribes, but a lot of this is probably Greek mythology. A lot of that is gray. Again, if you're an actual historian, correct me. But he called them Amazones, Antianeri. I think that's Latin. and the latter word often translate as the opposites of men. So the Amazons that are the opposites of men, that's the wording Homer himself used. There is another allusion in Homer to the Amazons, although this is this is more indirect rather than direct. It occurs in the second book of the Iliad, where the spot of assembly for the Trojans and their allies is designated. It says, quote, "There is before the city a certain lofty barrow, in the plain far away, standing detached on this side, and on that, which men, forsooth, called Batiaea, but the immortals name it the grave of swift-bounding Myrina. Here, then, were the Trojans numbered and their allies. The scholiast," by the way, not scholar, this word is scholiast, I had to look this up, scholiast.
Scoliosis.
It's a commentator on ancient or classical literature. So that's the word for, that's the definition. A scholiast had this commentary. He said that Myrina in this is a word for was an Amazon, the daughter of Teucer and the wife of Dardanus. It's a city. Myrina is the name of an Amazon here. So this is another. Gotcha. Is talking Homer another reference to an actual Amazonian woman, actually, not just Themyscira and shit. So yeah. The famous queen of the Amazons was Hippolyta, the daughter of the war god Ares, who was famously killed during Heracles' labors. In the DC universe, Hippolyta is the co-ruler of the Amazons with her sister Antiope. She is both the leader of the Amazons in Themyscira and the mother of Wonder Woman. Okay, well, there's co-leader. All right.
Yep.
Even though the myth has some basis in reality, some scholars believe that the Amazons were based on Scythian, Scythian, Scythian warrior women. This is a possibility here. They were members of a nomadic tribe that ruled over large swaths of the Eurasian steppe, Steppe, during the period that many of these myths were recorded. Mass graves of warrior women are found in that region, and they support this hypothesis. All right. And yeah, let's get into how they procreate. Where do they come from? Going back to that. Either it's clay or they do have. Well, let's explain the clay thing. Generally in the comics, and especially since Marston wanted to keep it, all women, like we've said, there's this like clay explanation where literally, what is it, Athena? Or no, Hippolyta, I think, makes Wonder Woman out of clay, and that's how the others are made as well, I think.
Yeah, Wonder Woman is formed from clay in the original origin. Pre-New 52. New 52 and the DCEU has her as the daughter of Zeus, but beforehand, she was sculpted from clay.
Right. Okay. All right. So it's a little different in some of the mythology. I have here, it says the ancients, they didn't believe the Amazons were immortal, despite being descended from the god Ares. The Encyclopedia Mythica explains the Greek legend held that the Amazons lived on the other side of a mountain range from a tribe of exclusively male warriors known as the Gargarians. And once a year, the two tribes would meet up in the mountains to, do their business.
When a man loves an Amazon.
Yeah.
One time a year. Good Lord.
I know, right? That's
saving up a lot.
Yeah.
They're pent up, man. They're pent up. Why do you think they're so angry when they fight? The female children raised by the Amazons and the Gargarians would either be put to death or would be taken up by the Gargarians, I think. But the 2011 Wonder Woman series addresses this idea, saying that the male children were secretly raised by the god Hephaestus. But Hephaestus uses some of them, or maybe all, for slave labor. So, again, it's dark. There's some darkness there in the comics, and of course the actual
Greek
the
mythology.
actual real mythology as well. Brian Azzarello's New 52 run had this explanation. Thrice per century, the Amazons go out to ships that are nearing Themyscira and present themselves as beautiful women willing to have sex with the men on board.
That's worse than once a year. Thrice a century?
Yeah. Thrice a century. Procreation occurs whether the men are willing or not, and then the men are killed or thrown overboard. So Azzarello kind of went nuts with this, and this is probably not carried over into Rebirth. This was also pretty controversial, to say the least, when it came out.
I imagine, yeah.
But it's not the hero doing this, right? It's
to
just
be fair,
fucked up shit
it does
in this comics.
Sound like if you said, hey, that comes from Greek mythology, not from something that Brian Azzarello wrote, but if you said that came from Greek mythology, that would be believable. So if Azzarello is trying to sort of recreate something that would happen in Greek mythology, he did a good job. I don't know necessarily if it was appropriate because I haven't read that story. I don't know if that was the right place for that, but if he's just trying to capture something that seems like it would be in Greek mythology, that definitely seems plausible.
Yeah, he captured the overall vibe. You would have to, if you don't know it, you would have to be clarified on which one is which for sure. Because
certainly,
yeah,
it doesn't make them seem very noble at all or heroic. I mean, when we watch like the Wonder Woman movies or even Justice League, and we see like the Amazonians, there's like a high level of respect for them because we see what they can do. But I think our empathies would greatly diminish if we saw like, well, this is where other Amazons come from, and then you see this flashback and it's like, oh, this is maybe not so good. So also, so in this storyline, this is where future female Amazonian warriors come from. These are just like Medivh boats. Who's to say they're not like scurvy ridden and just genetically like maybe not so great, like to pass on these genes? Is it just like
decent point,
you just need a Y chromosome? Is that it?
I'm here to have sex with an Amazon.
It does seem like a weird choice that like why would they go to that sort of range when they're not necessarily the best source for genes, as Zach brought up.
Right. I haven't read that part either, but it's, I guess we can assume that they have an eye for quality. I don't know.
They just dump overboard anybody who has scurvy.
Shit.
Yeah, maybe anybody that can make it on that boat, or they have an arrangement, they know the Gargarians, or actually I think the Gargarians are the actual mythology. I'm not sure who these dudes are in the in the comics, but yeah, they just meet them on boats, seems like.
It's like that Futurama thing, like death by snoo, I guess. It's just like
Pretty much.
that's what it
That's where it
is.
comes
I guess they're like, they know what's going to happen, but they're just going to go for it anyways.
Okay.
So bizarre.
It's wild, man.
I mean, if you have a choice between getting killed or having sex and then getting killed, you might as well go for the latter. Just saying.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going to get killed anyway. You might as well enjoy the last 10, 15 minutes or so.
The last,
or 5 seconds. If
I need Jump
you
to
haven't had
come
any
in and
sex.
make this all better.
it's been thrice per century. It's not lasting very long.
1 second. No wonder they were killed afterwards.
And they're not using any protection to help out the amount of time it takes.
There were no blue pills. There were no Viagra at the time.
Well, they wouldn't need a blue pill.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
When they're on the island, are they immortal? Because we don't see any old
Yeah, they're immortal.
Amazonians.
They can be killed, but
they don't age.
they're immortal.
Yeah.
It's like a what's it call it? Legolas kind of thing.
I mean, even off the island, though, Diana hasn't aged since 1918.
Right, I was just thinking but they're part human. If they're from human men.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
Oh,
I just want to
these
know, like,
people, yeah.
yeah.
See that part? That's good to look up. I'm not sure.
Because then, all right, this is like crazy. So, what if after everything, 3 times a century,
Yeah.
these children that were part man from man's world, so they're part human, wouldn't their children then have less and less Amazonian DNA? Or, does that make sense? Like
maybe because Marston's had the idea with the clay. That
makes more sense.
Keeps away from all that.
Azzarello just really complicated things with this whole
too many questions now. Yeah,
it was fine when it was clay. Now it's just like, wait, so they rape all these guys who come by the ship? Yeah. Like,
right.
It's like stick to the clay.
Okay, so talking about that, making them less heroic. It does make it a lot darker, but that it says something about they want the direction they wanted to bring it in. Maybe was they just want to stay away from men. They're not necessarily heroic. Diana's heroic. Maybe her mother is too, but it's not like I think the Amazons are just inherently. This maybe gets away from Marston's ideas for sure, but they're not exactly not toxic at all. They want to make it a little bit more gray, a lot more gray, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I mean, there are in the comics like wars between the Amazons. Not all of them are these heroic characters. I think, our main exposure, at least us on this podcast, have been through the Patty Jenkins, Zack Snyder, Themyscira version, and that's such a fantastic version of it, and such great heroic warriors that it's a little hard to sort of reconcile that with some of the stuff that is in Greek mythology or in these other versions of it, just in the same way that other parts of the Snyderverse were sort of the opposite, where they were more controversial in the movies than they were in the comics. So I think that's probably why, is that our main exposure comes from this sort of idealistic but fantastic portrayal of them as these honorable warriors, when they're not always like that in the comics or mythology.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they probably just had years and years of making them a utopia, and they're just trying something new.
This
probably
would be
really pissed off a lot of people, and obviously controversial as hell. But to me, it's not. It's a fake world. Okay, let's put that out there. So it's okay. This is happening to cause some drama, set up a lot. They're not the hero, the heroine. It's not Diana doing it, I assume. So, and it's something that she can react against in this story. So, for me, I think it kind of makes it more interesting in a lot of ways.
You're telling me it's not real?
You telling me in Homeward Bound it's not their real voices?
What? I thought they hired those dogs because they could talk. Those animals. Man.
We're going to be rich. This talking dog. Okay. Let's talk about the origin of the name Amazon, man.
Jeff Bezos one day decided...
I shall make packages for the world with smiley faces upon them, because I cannot smile myself. All right. Lex Luthor himself.
Time to kill Superman.
Yep.
God, it's art reflecting reality, man. Or reality reflecting art.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, man, the origin of the word. By the way, I like etymology. I like linguistics. I am not a linguist at all, but I like language, and I like being an amateur researcher of this kind of shit. Okay? And when we do the Atlantis episode, we're going to do that again, actually, but more on that later. So the origin of the name Amazon is uncertain. It may be derived from an Iranian ethnonym, Hamazon, warriors. A word attested indirectly through a derivation, a denominal verb in Hesychius of Alexandria's gloss. So, Hamazakaran also means to make war in Persian, and it appears together with the Indo-Iranian root kar, to make. That's K-A-R. So, yeah. It may alternatively be a Greek word descended from, and this word's hard to read. Actually, this looks unreadable, actually. But anyway, it means manless without husbands. So, yeah. Cognate with Proto-Balto-Slavic mangja. Explanation unlikely by a guy named Hjalmar Frisk, but that was up there. Again, they don't really know where this word comes from. Not exactly. There's a folk etymology, and a folk etymology is where people just kind of, they just think it came from there, but it's probably not true. But just to go over that, there's a word meaning breastless in ancient Greek, and there is that whole myth that the Amazons cut their right breast off.
I heard about this, yeah.
Or they burn it off. Burnt, too, was another thing. But I don't know why you wouldn't just cut it. But that's been around for a long time. And apparently that's not true. It's not part of, the ancient myths. And I don't think... It hasn't been shown to be a part of any of the warrior women actual archaeological evidence, I think, either.
Gotcha.
But it also comes from wanting to shoot a bow and arrow. Again, you can shoot it if you have both breasts, but
yeah.
I'm just explaining where the myth comes from. You just want to be able to pull. I'm trying to show it, but you want to pull the bow back far, and the breast gets in the way, especially if it's on the larger side, maybe.
Right.
So there is that. That's where that comes from. But again, this is a folk etymology, so it's not exactly real.
Well, Wonder Woman would definitely look different in the comics if this was part of it. But I would say I'm glad it's not a part of it because of the fact that I don't think we need self-mutilation in these comics.
No.
It's a way. It's not. You don't want it. I could see, and this is a folk etymology I think that the ancient Greeks believed in, but there's, again, no. So take it with a grain of salt. But I think part of it's just they're supposed to be like the women Spartans, and they're so badass. They're so devoted to war. They're so devoted to the bow and arrow. They'll cut their own breast off. So that's probably where all that stems from. But yeah, it's not really necessary. And I think Jenkins or Godot also commented on this in one interview. They said something about it. So yeah. Let's check in. Zach, thoughts so far on the Amazon stuff?
I don't know. There was a lot of funny words you were saying there, Andrew.
It's a lot of trip over, man.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, and it was interesting to talk about the whole myth behind the removal of the breast, because as soon as you started to go into that, I immediately remembered that. I remember that being a part of the Amazonian myth there, that they would remove their right breast to shoot arrows better. So it's definitely interesting. Now I feel like the name an Amazonian, or a woman that would be associated with an Amazonian, is like a thick woman of large stature or something. I don't know. I feel like it's definitely not like a negative term, but that's what I feel like when people think of a woman being an Amazonian, that's what they would think of now.
I would first think of the rainforest before the site became a big deal, but I'm assuming that rainforest I should have looked this up, but the rainforest is named after the Greek word. So
I would think so too.
Yeah. Ben?
I just looked this up in terms of because not necessarily the most surprising thing, but the most notable thing has to be this whole chop off the other breast part of the legend, because I have heard about that, and it was definitely from that interview, and I looked it up while Zach was talking, and Gal Gadot was the one who brought this up when people were criticizing her body for her breast being too small for Wonder Woman. And her reply,
it's ridiculous.
Her reply is, quote, "Wonder Woman is an Amazon, which means that I should only have one boob, so they are lucky they are getting two small ones." So
she handled that shit. Shut it down.
She did.
Gal.
Yeah, it was great. And also, this is, I think, this may have been before the Wonder Woman movie, and even before Batman vs. Superman. So people hadn't really seen her in the role, and I think, obviously once she debuted in Batman vs. Superman, everybody loved her in it, and more so when Wonder Woman came out, and she's our Wonder Woman for this generation, and I think that's awesome.
So much backlash whenever she was cast, and then when she was actually in the fucking movie, everybody was like, "Oh,
well, it's like Affleck." Was wrong. It's like Affleck. It's just fuck that guy. And then they see him just destroy everybody in the warehouse in the trailer. They're just like, we want more of this.
people hating on Snyder's choices, and those get uncanceled, and then Snyder himself gets uncanceled.
Is Wonder Woman typically drawn with large breasts? I mean, I don't really think about it.
I don't notice those things.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of Alex Ross. Like, that's probably like the version I think of first, and I guess she just looks like kind of bulky in general. Mm-hmm. But I don't think of like Power Girl when I think of Wonder Woman.
I think she's bigger than Gal Gadot. I think.
Yeah, I do think like she's
from women probably.
Yeah,
but yes, it's bigger than Gal Gadot probably, and especially you have the Linda Carter, and people have her in mind as well, and she wasn't on the small side either, so. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the artist as well, but obviously it's not the most important thing when it comes to casting Wonder Woman. I think that the legend is interesting, but as I said, I'm glad we don't have that sort of element of self-mutilation, even though like it's almost like that Game of Thrones thing where the guy's nipple gets cut off and he doesn't do anything. Like it's one of those like legends that are supposed to be there to show how hardcore they are, but I don't think we need to see that in practice.
A little much, probably, especially for
just
the movies now.
Yeah.
It would definitely bring it into the R territory.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. All right.
Definitely.
You guys prefer well, I think we already know, but any more details on what you think about the clay explanation versus the grittier,
I like the clay. There's like a story, I feel like it's pretty recent, where Clayface absorbs a Wonder Woman, or he tries to absorb her because she is
awesome.
Clay. I can't remember how they separate eventually because she's technically like a magic clay. But yeah, there is like this pretty recent storyline where Clayface does try to consume Wonder Woman. And that's kind of neat. And I think about Alex Ross's Justice, where Cheetah like scratches her, and it's like looks like magma or whatever,
yeah.
that hot like orange,
cool.
and then she's like slowly turning back to like it almost looks like ash, but it's like the clay is like burning, and that visual is pretty cool to me, and I think that kind of leaning into even that much more of a supernatural element is pretty cool to realize like, oh yeah, Wonder Woman's actually made of clay. I think that's kind of interesting.
That is cool. I never thought about her relationship with Clayface like that. That's cool.
That would be so awesome to see on screen, the whole like scratches from Cheetah, and then obviously they can't do it for this version because she doesn't have that origin. But if they did, imagine if they did, and like Cheetah scratches her, and then you see the magma, and then it sort of closes over and stuff like that would be awesome.
Be sweet. Ben?
In terms of which origin I prefer, I mean the clay one is a classic. The Zeus one, I don't really have a lot of problems with the Zeus one in the New 52 on it, or the one presented in the Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman movie. I think I'm fine with either version that's out there. I don't necessarily need this whole ship of guys that they show up to do Death by Snooze to thrice a century on that, but I'm interested to see what the story was, because I feel like Azzarello just wouldn't do that for the hell of it. It probably plays some role in that story.
Right. Yeah. I want to know if I could probably look this up right after the podcast, but look up if that part was probably changed for Rebirth. A little bit too much for some, maybe. I like it when they go for the gold, though, if they change it up just for funsies. The bracelets generally do not deflect bullets like Diana's do, however. Diana's are special. So, and they were iconic gold bands, and Marston wrote them as symbol of real-world women's status in society and the hope that women would break out of oppressive systems. So, again, political stuff, but there you go. The other thing is, well, Marston probably it didn't go quite this far, but I don't think that he would have been upset at this, and this was revealed a couple years ago, but many of them, if not all of them, are bisexual, the Amazons.
Mm-hmm.
knowing what we know about Marston, it seems like he probably wouldn't have had a problem with this.
Not at all.
But this was revealed
Right.
recently to be actually true. Wonder Woman herself is bisexual. She sometimes has relationships with women. So we're nearing the end here, guys. But final questions here. Do you think that it is silly, actually, that some people say keep politics out of comics after hearing about this and also knowing that Superman has kind of like social justice warrior stories going on, and especially in his early years as well? And this is, I mean, keep politics out of comics. It's been a part of it since day one. Zach.
Yeah, of course it's stupid. It's just like most art is created to not only entertain but to make you think. It's there to tell you these stories. And you're right, it has been there since day one. Art constantly reflects what is going on in the culture around it. Think about, like, if you look at what was that Batman collection that was like the World War II era or whatever, that you can see like those stories where it's like you get all these advertisements of Batman like saying like buy, what is it,
Buy war bonds.
Now I can't. Yeah, buy war bonds, and it's all this stuff like what are you gonna say, like, oh, keep comics out of politics there, like, and then Captain America punching Hitler in the face. That's a part of comics, is to reflect the culture of the time. So you can't just get upset now because maybe something is going on with comics that you don't agree with. It's there to reflect the times, and that's what I think good art does. We do want to be entertained by art, but I feel like if you're just going to want your comics to remain in a bubble, then that's not really the point. You can just go and read old comic books if you don't like whatever the new stuff is that's going on. It's just, that's inappropriate to think that it's just going to remain it created in a vacuum where nothing in the outside world is affecting your characters. And I think that's just what's difficult for people, because they've grown up with these characters. They want them to be a certain way, but yeah, it can't be created in a vacuum. That's not really what comics are about, or any kind of stories.
Should challenge the status quo. Ben?
I mean, we did a whole episode on the Superman radio series and Superman fighting the KKK and white supremacists and everything. So I think my stance on this is pretty known, where it's, as you said, it's always been that way. And I think you have to stay true to not just the world where these stories are being created, but true to what superheroes represent. They're supposed to represent helping to change the world. So it's kind of impossible for you to stay out of that. When I watched Falcon and Winter Soldier, and there was the stuff about, obviously, how it's going to be different for a black man to be Captain America versus a white man, I'm like, that makes a ton of sense, because that's realistic. That's not like, it would be unrealistic to completely ignore that factor, to ignore the identity politics or the contrast between the ideals that Captain America represents versus sort of the government's use of what they think he should represent or what he should do for them, and the differences between John Walker and Sam Wilson and what happened to Isaiah Bradley. Like, it all comes together, it makes sense. It makes the world feel more relevant, I think, than, Batman has to stop a bank robber for the 200th time. Like, you don't need to see more of that type of stuff. Like, what does that have to say about the character? What does that have to say about the world? And the world is changing, and the comics are always changing. So I don't think that there is really a good argument for why it shouldn't be there, because it always has been there since the very beginning, as we've brought up on this podcast. And I think that's, if you have situations where it's Superman versus the KKK and it influences real life and influences people to sort of have a different perspective or to understand a certain perspective before that they hadn't had before, then comics has done their job in terms of what they should do, in terms of not necessarily comics specifically, but just stories. Stories are meant to help connect us and help sort of give us empathy in some ways towards different perspectives that we wouldn't have. So that isn't just something that I think is specific to comics. I think that's specific to fiction and fictional stories in general, that there's always going to be room for them to deal with parts of our reality and parts of the real world. And it's up to you as a consumer in terms of which stories you want to do and which ones you want to ignore. But it's not necessarily a bad thing for people to draw off the real world for their stories, because that's exactly why we find these stories relevant and true to our world, and why we feel an emotional connection to all this.
I think so. I mean, going back to Superman again, you got two Jewish teenagers at the onset of World War I and II creating a hero for them, what they saw as the best, and what do you think's gonna be in there, you know? So it's just silly when people say that kind of thing, honestly. It's been politically charged medium literally since day one, man. There's no... And then tell us about if there's anything about Batman being political, but jumping to Wonder Woman real quick, she's obviously purposefully propaganda. It's like he does not give a fuck what anybody says. This is propaganda for young women and hopefully boys too if they're reading it, you know. What does a world look like with women being 100% equal or above men? And he probably maybe a drawing from matriarchal tribes and shit in the past. Also, people always bring up, you know, some pagan tribes in Europe before Christianity were more women-based. A lot of pre-Christian, pre-Abrahamic religion stuff was. Again, this all depends on which tribe and which area it is and what time period. But people like to say that it was a little bit more women-centric before then. Shinto in Japan too is also a little bit more women-centric. The highest priests are priestesses. Buddhism seems to be a little bit more male-centric. But anyway, it's interesting to think about all that shit and to have this all stem from a comic book conversation, you know?
Right.
Does Batman have any kind of like... He was kind of like a social justice warrior kind of deal, since he was literally... they were trying to make another Superman comic?
I mean, a lot of his involvement politically in the Golden Age and Silver Age was probably involving the war, as Zach was talking about, with trying to sell war bonds, and there's stuff with him. There's literally a comic cover of him with a Gatling gun on the war front. And stuff, which is totally against what people would say, but like that's as far back as that. And the very first Batman movie, the serial, is he and Robin are agents for the U.S. government. They're going up against the Japanese saboteur. Not necessarily the most culturally sensitive portrayal of Japanese people at that time, but I mean, it is the propaganda. And you know, I'm of the belief that you just need to know the context of its time to know that stuff. We shouldn't ignore those things. We shouldn't ignore stories from the past just because they might not have aged very well. Because it's just like, that's not necessarily the point. We need to at least know that that was the time. Otherwise, if we completely skirt that under the rug and pretend it didn't exist, then we're not going to learn from it.
Yeah, exactly. Learn from the past, man.
Yeah.
All right. So finally closing out. Wonderful answers, gentlemen. So Marston certainly liked to wonder. Try to imagine Marston wrote between 1931 and 1947 in an unpublished manuscript revealed by Jill Lepore. A future world may seem fantastic in which it becomes the usual thing instead of the exception, to have women senators, women legislators, women governors, and a woman president. Still waiting on that one. If such things seem possible, he mused, well, so did the submarine envisaged by Jules Verne, legalized birth control and equal political rights for women. So
he was ahead of his time.
Terrifying.
Equating, the advancement of technology with the advancement of women's rights and how really just fucking how women are perceived, you know. Like that's really maybe even a bigger topic there, but yeah, that is pretty much it. Final thoughts, Zach? Final comments, questions?
thinking about this after we talked about the clay stuff. Do you think they have to eat if they're all made out of clay?
They eat kanga meat.
Oh shit!
Not Kanga.
Not Jumpa.
Not Jumpa.
Get really
no.
desperate.
Kanga veal.
Well, I don't know. Just something I was thinking about. Let's say they're on an island and they're all supposed to be immortal. Do they have to eat? I'm just wondering about that. I know Wonder Woman eats in the movies, but she's not clay on
Well,
film.
you know, the thing is, I don't think Superman has to eat, which makes him even harder to fucking relate to, I think, in some way. But
I was thinking
anyway,
about that too.
because he's a plant. He's a fucking, what do you call it? Photosynthesis. But
He doesn't poop either.
with Wonder Woman, I think you're not going to die of natural causes as long as you eat and no one kills you. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
As long as you just like, I think they eat. I think you can make the argument for them having to eat.
Okay.
Even though they don't have to. Wonder Woman and Superman are like, we're good. Batman's just like, I'm starving. Alfred, give me something.
I'm going to get drive-through.
They all got coffee at the end of Kingdom Come, so they're drinking
true, yeah.
something.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why I was thinking about that the whole time, because they're clay people. Because I'm like, what does Clayface have to eat? And, you know, all these weird thoughts go through my head, you know, thinking about the supernatural elements. But overall, as far as closing thoughts, other than that,
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Woo.
The kangaroo stuff and the
The most important thing you got from all this shit.
the
is
Hercules
Jumpa.
raping and enslaving them, and then and of course them like forcefully having sex or raping the pirates or whatever, the people on the ship, and to make new Amazonians. That all that stuff is wild. One thing I do really like though is the use of the bracelets as a reminder of what will happen to them if they leave the island. Because I always thought it was another kind of like fetish thing as far as bondage, like the bracelets. But I do like the symbolism of all the Amazonians wearing them to just as a reminder, like, hey, if you leave the island, you're not going to be, you know, equal to men anywhere else. So that's actually pretty cool. I think that's one of the most interesting takeaways that I'm going to get from this.
I didn't bring this up before, but just to cover what you said, Marston and his wife and their lover were into bondage, and it shows up where the lasso of truth comes from, just for the listener out there. Look it up. It is there. There's a BDSM thing going on. He liked being dominated by women. So it's all there. So Ben?
It is definitely interesting to see the connections with Greek mythology and where he came in and his perspective on it. And it is, I mean, she is basically the perfect marriage of a guy who is pretty much a progressive feminist and Greek mythology that obviously was not very progressive feminist, and marrying them together and turning it into a superhero. That's, if you think about it, that's kind of an insane combination of those three elements, and yet it works so well in the world that we've seen, and we wouldn't have, you know, this great portrayal of the Amazons and Wonder Woman that we do today in the DC movies. So I think it's a great and definitely jumper for Wonder Woman 3.
Already Jumpa in there.
Yeah.
It is great. You can look up Kanga's Wonder Woman. You'll see like these panels of them just riding like, yay! Like it's a fun horse.
Just have the Hans Zimmer Wonder Woman music in the background as she's on.
Yeah. Oh shit, man. All right. That is superhero stuff you should know.
All right, so we have a few fan comments, 2 that I found, and then 1 that Andrew found himself.
Oh, yeah.
So first one comes from a user named JJ Howley, I believe is the pronunciation. Let us know. JJ says, quote, Zach is big into impersonations, and he's darn good at it. So there you go, Zach. There's your
Hot
validation
damn.
of the day.
Don't give him a bigger head than he already has. He barely fit his headphones on right now.
Biggest one right now on screen.
I just said that I did comment back and say, like, I am glad someone appreciated it.
You only got, how many followers you got on Instagram? 30,000?
No, not 30,000.
Oh, okay.
So
39.
almost 20. So
Oh, okay. All right. Settle down.
it's getting there.
Next one comes from Stanwood32. Says, quote, such great podcasts. I don't listen to many others, but these are awesome. So thank you, Stanwood. Look forward to them each week. Being a huge Batman fan, you guys rock. So thank you.
Thanks, dude. And our final comment was on TikTok, actually, by OddWolf799. This was on the Man of Steel pitch clip, Man of Steel 2 pitch that we did. There's a clip of that on our TikTok, and he said, "Sounds terrible."
I like his candor.
Thank you, Odd Wolf. All right.
He didn't pull any punches.
Don't pull any punches on this one. I don't know why it fucking made me laugh. Sounds terrible. Okay. Patreon, man.
Yep.
We want to thank our Patreon supporters who are Shasta, Leom O, Jose Arrocha, Super Inframan, Douglas P, Dan D, Aaron Willett, Nick Noir, Jeffrey R, Sketchcraft, Scott V, Yuli, and now I want to thank our other supporters, Sparkageddon, STCT Productions, Robert Schumann, Kukin Noms, Matt Herring, Elijah B, Shamrock Balls, Ian H, Walter the Wobot, John Wells, and Rye Guy. Join the Shasta Army. That's the $1 tier, patreon.com/superherostuffpod. And you can get a shout out right there. And then the $5 tier, $5 a month, cancel anytime, is really the best tier overall. We will make better, more expensive tiers as time. We do have them, but really $5 tier is one we want to focus on, and that's the one in which you get a whole extra show, deeper dives, generally by Ben, once again connected to the main show, but going even deeper than the main show does. And just like this show, as you see, sometimes I head it up as well, but mainly Ben. Superhouse merch, go to redbubble.com or superhousepod.redbubble.com or tpublic.com/user/superhousepodcast5000 or threadless superherostuffpod.threadless.com. They're all good. They all have basically the same thing. It's Indeed Wizard drawings by Wolfie, made into mugs and shirts and shit like that, and Ben Man mugs and shirts, superhero stuff you should know logo is on there, things like that. So check that out. Please leave us a review in iTunes. Also, please record us something on your phone, like an audio clip or whatever. Send that to us at superhousepodcast@gmail.com. You too can be on the show. Also, you can animate our sketches if you want. Please do. Just put a hashtag at the bottom of the video itself. Hashtag Superhero Stuff Pod or Superhero Stuff You Should Know Podcast. Something like that in the video, but also in the description. More importantly, in the video, though. But if you want to animate, want to be an animator, if you're an animator out there and you want audio for something that you want to animate, it's there. It's there for you.
We got plenty of material.
Plenty of material. Just let us know. We've already gotten some inquiries on that. So, yeah. I'm Thunderwolf Drew on Instagram and Twitter. Check out Thunderwolf Lives on YouTube for all my Japan-related content. And ThunderwolfLives.com has all of my portfolio and shit also, if you want to check that out.
Nice.
And Ben.
You can follow us on Twitter at SuperHousePod. You can also follow us on Instagram at SuperheroStuffPod, which was how we met Zach. My personal Instagram is Ben1Writer, and you can also follow my cat, my son, Alfie Pennyworth Cat, on Instagram, which does bring us to the fact that we are affiliates with Whiskerbox. If you have a little furry friend, a little furry feline friend, you can go to our link in the description below for Superhouse Podcast, Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and we have a shop link in there for our affiliates where you can buy things from Amazon. You could potentially even buy this Wonder Woman glass from Amazon there, and that will not only enhance your collection, but also help us out a little bit as well. My website is benwanwriter.com, and my channel is in the description below. Over to you, Zach.
You can follow me as usual on the TikToks, on the Instagrams, on the YouTubes. Woo. It's all ZacharyJacksonBrownArt. And then you can also
Simple.
go to ZacharyJacksonBrownArt.com to see all the other stuff I create and just look at it with your eye holes. Take it in. Soak it in.
Wow, that's great. It's SuperHousePod.com/shop, by the way.
For the affiliates, yeah.
Our affiliate links. Yeah, thanks for that, everybody. And I think that's going to do it for us. Signing off. This is Wonder Woman, by the way, not Wakanda.
Wakanda's this.